Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our speaker series kickoff. Uh, this evening, we have something special. We have a panel of Cañada alum, and this evening they're going to be speaking to STEM careers outside of the Silicon Valley. We do understand that most individuals who tend to graduate in STEM majors tend to come to the Bay Area. It's very rare to find people to leave the Bay Area. So tonight it's going to be very special. We have Fidel Salgado, uh, Jeremy Morales Madrigal, and Lisa Torres. And so let's go ahead and begin the questions. Also, for those you in attendance, if you can please, if you have questions, you can type your questions in the Q&A, and then we will try to address them at the end, unless the panelists feel, the need to address it now. So we will begin with the first question. What was your major at Cañada, and where did you transfer to? So anyone can speak on that. Okay.
Okay, so I'll be the first one, and we'll rotate from now on. How about that? So hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Morales Madrigal. I was in Cañada from 2007 to 2010 as a chemical engineering major, and I transferred to UC San Diego and graduated with a bachelor's in chemical engineering. So glad to see everyone here tonight.
I can go next. So hi, everyone. I'm Fidel. I went to Cañada College from 2011 to 2014. And then I transferred to Stanford, where I studied computer science. Yeah, super honored to be here. I remember being in the speaker series a few years back, and really honored to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa, and I attended Cañada from 2009 to 2012. And I transferred to UC Berkeley, and my major was mechanical engineering. And I'm very, very grateful to come back and to be on this panel. So thank you for having me, Rance.
All right. So just real quick to speak to Fidel, he did transfer to Stanford. Some of our students believe that, they can't do it, but it is possible to transfer to Stanford as a community college student. So just had to put that little plug in. All right, so the next question, how was the adjustment going from a community college to a four-year institution? How was that adjustment for you? Was it easy? Did you guys feel prepared? Did you not feel prepared? If you can reflect on that. And any tips that you can share with the audience.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. Yeah, I can speak a little bit about that. So transferring to Berkeley for me, my first semester was difficult. It was definitely challenging to go from the small community Cañada had that was everyone was wanting to help you, and it was like home. And Berkeley just felt so big, and it's just this immense institution that it was scary. It was scary to reach out. So I found myself just sort of trying to do it alone, and you can never really do it alone. But as soon as I found my little smaller community at Berkeley, that's really when I felt that I belonged, and I was able to then sort of feel that natural belonging, and then sort of gravitate naturally to progressing in my studies.
I want to echo that too as well. For me, it was definitely not easy. It was very, very challenging. My transfer class was very small, and these were the only people that I had something in common, that I had transferred to school, and they also just transferred. And the other thing I found was that a lot of like when you join as a freshman, everyone is sharing that it's like the vast majority of students, at least at Stanford, and then you make like very tight circles as a freshman, and then when you join as a transfer, like breaking into these like tight social circles is quite difficult, and it takes some time. So similarly to Lisa, just finding that community was probably like one of the biggest challenges in my first year. I joined it's called SOL, which is basically the SHIP chapter, to start finding that community. That helped me a ton, and just becoming an officer, and also like taking classes and meeting classmates, and just being open to meeting new people. And you always find those like neat tight community that help you succeed well and do well in these classes and at school. In terms of classicists, I think similarly was just very stressful at the beginning. I had a sense of like that imposter syndrome of whether or not I belong here, and whether or not I was like capable enough to do well in these classes. So by working really hard and not, unfortunately, like not sleeping much and just trying to catch up with all my classmates, I was able to like do like okay, like fairly well in the classes, but I think that adjustment to like coming from community college where like I was just very focused on trying to do the best I could, to just being more okay to like, oh, being in the median of maybe of my class is that it's going to be okay. Like I just need to focus and get used to this new environment. I think giving myself that chance to just be more okay through this struggle I think was like one of the biggest pieces of adjustment to moving to a 4-year institution.
Yep, and I guess to kind of tie it together with what both Lisa and Fidel mentioned. So a lot of universities, especially the UCs, are in a quarter system. So going from a semester to a quarter system, that was a shocker for me because it's really fast paced. So you really have to get on your toes and start running right away. Again, going from a small community where you know everyone to being a transfer student in a 30 plus campus, 8 hours away from home, that was rough. I remember I was part of a scholarship foundation, and they even asked me, it's like, have you thought of even transferring back to a school closer by, because you sound sad. And that's when I realized that I was homesick. I was really excited to get away from home, but I didn't recognize the signs that I was actually homesick. So just be aware that the transition will probably have some toll on yourself, but it's for the best. I remember asking Dr. E, he's on the line tonight, and I was like, Dr. E, I don't know if I'm ready to transfer. Should I take any more classes? And he was like, no, Jeremy, you're ready. Get out of here.
Excellent. Fidel, he mentioned something important, and I mean, I understand that it's not in the questions, but it all ties into your experience. You guys said you guys came from a small community, where people cared. And that's something the STEM Center does, create that community. So were you able to find similar programs at your four-year institution, similar programs like the STEM Center that provided you other resources that you might not have found on your own? Did you guys happen to find those types of resources? And if so, please share.
I think for me was like, I mentioned this briefly, but joining the SHIP chapter was similar in the sense of meeting other classmates that are doing maybe like a different major. So I studied computer science, so it was like an opportunity to meet people that are studying mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. So in that sense, it was great to join this part of the community. But also I remember the STEM Center was also a place where you get to go and ask questions about your classes and get help from like people that are taking the classes, or maybe had already taken the class. To do that, the format was, at least in my experience, was very, very heavily focused on office hours. So that was the place where like I had to like schedule my entire week around the office hours to make sure that I could go and ask as many questions as I could to the people helping, like to the TAs, to the teaching assistants, and also like it was a great opportunity for me to meet other people that were in the class, and maybe outside of office hours we can collaborate together. So I think like those two places were for me how I found something similar to the STEM Center at Cañada.
For myself and my experience, I definitely took more of the timid approach. So I was really not sure who to talk to. And I was also a little bit afraid to even speak up. And because of this, I later found that there are other programs at Berkeley that I could have joined, but within the 2 years, I mean, it just goes by so fast. But I was able to sort of join together with a few other transfer students that felt the same way. And we actually established a club on campus that was sort of it was the Mechanical Engineering Transfer Student Union. And it sort of invited the people that, transfer students were extremely diverse. We could be starting straight out of high school, going to a community college and then transferring, or you could have gone many years and worked or have done other things before going back to school. So we sort of shared that we were like this little like group of outcasts in a way. And so we ended up forming a club. So that was sort of my approach.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and for me, it was very similar to Fidel's experience. So in Cañada, I was the co-president of the SHIP chapter for a couple of years. I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of how the student chapters were run. So by the time I transferred, I wanted to see what the student chapter at UC San Diego was like. And I immediately saw a bunch of things that I could kind of stick my nose into. And so I started reaching out to those folks, and I ended up making a lot of good friends from there and from their immediate friends. I remember my last year at Cañada, we were taking salsa classes. So I also joined some of the salsa clubs in San Diego. We were going out dancing pretty much every weekend. So it was really kind of embracing the new community, the new environment, and really also bringing into the table what you knew, what you were good at, what you enjoyed. And I think the mixture of the two really made for a great experience.
Okay, excellent. Excellent, awesome. So moving on to our next question. What motivated you to leave the Bay Area after you graduated? Lisa and Fidel, you guys were still in the Bay Area. You guys transferred to campuses in the Bay Area. And I know, Jeremy, you had, you left the Bay Area, you went down to San Diego. So, your story is different. So what, how come you didn't come back home, so to speak? And then, why did, Fidel and Lisa, why did you guys leave?
I can start off with that. Like you said, I'm born and raised. I went to Sequoia High School. I've just stayed in Redwood City my entire life. So after I graduated, I was definitely looking to get that sort of taste of leaving home that a lot of my friends had gotten. And then coupled with, I was finding I had started in construction management and I wanted to do a career change, and I wanted to be more in healthcare and sort of the biomedical field. And I was finding that the companies within the Bay Area, they were looking for candidates with a master's degree, which I was not yet ready to commit to getting. I wanted to first gain some experience to make sure that that was the next step for myself. So that is why I had moved out of California. I actually initially had moved to Chicago and was working for a medical device company over there. And that was, for me, the key stepping stone for my decision on, yes, this solidified. I wanted to be in this career field, and also that I knew that I needed to get a master's in order to sort of excel in it.
Okay.
Let me go second. So for me, kind of reflecting on the question and my experience while still being at Cañada, I remember after or for any vacation period that we will get, I kid you not, I will leave the day we finished finals and not come back until the weekend before classes started. And most of the times I will travel back to Mexico. So I was born and raised in Mexico. I came to the US when I was 15. I went to San Mateo High School, but I only lived 1 year in San Mateo and the rest in Redwood City. So the Bay Area is very dear to me. A lot of my family lives in the Bay Area, but I feel like I have a wandering spirit. And I love traveling. So that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to go away for college. And hence San Diego was the perfect place, perfect weather, perfect campus. And after that, I mean, I was like, I have an option to get a job for a chemical company in Texas or to go work for an oil company in West Africa. I was like, well, the oil company is going to pay me more and they're going to pay for my travel. Sign me up. So I ended up spending about 1.5 years traveling back and forth. I was able to get training in the United Arab Emirates. I got some training in Europe. I got some training back here in the US in Houston. So that was a great experience. And again, it was feeding my wandering spirit. It was all getting paid for. I was getting to meet a lot of people. And I was having the time of my life. So I grew up thinking and knowing that I wanted to work for an oil company. And I was living my dream. And then oil prices dropped and I was laid off, right? So I was like, well, maybe time to recalibrate here. I ended up actually going back home to the Bay Area. And I actually worked for the Outward Bound program. Well, I was still trying to figure out, okay, what is going to be my next step here? That's where I found a master's program at UC Santa Barbara. It was a 1-year program in technology management. And actually, I not only got a master's degree, I ended up getting a girlfriend who is now my wife, and now a doctor in psychology. So you never know where you're going to find in life. So, I mean, nothing against the Bay Area, but again, I felt like it was overpriced. It was over competitive. After I finished my master's, I ended up moving to Nebraska, of all places, to work for a food manufacturing company. And as an engineer, and now I'm working again for another chemical company in Kentucky. So the movement keeps going. And I don't know if I'm going to be moving back to California at any given point, maybe. But yeah, I mean, nothing against the Bay Area. It's just that I wanted to see more of the world. And I think there is more of this world than just the state of California. For those of you that have never left, yes, it is a beautiful state, but there is way more than just the Bay Area. And that goes to my wife too. She's from San Jose.
For me, I have a similar story than Jeremy. I was born in LA, but I only lived there for until I was like 3 or 4. And then my parents are from El Salvador, and they moved back to El Salvador. And so I grew up in El Salvador and up until like finishing high school. Then after high school, I moved to the Bay Area and started going to Cañada College. After finishing my undergrad, I started working full time at this company called Stripe. It's a startup that helps online businesses like set up payments. So like if you're an online business and you're trying to like essentially get paid from your customers, and then you can just integrate with Stripe, and you don't have to worry about if your end customers is using Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. Like basically the idea is like to abstract everything related to payments away from your business, so you can focus on whatever you're providing to your customers. Anyway, so like as part of like the joining this company, I was kind of like there was like a big push on like how can we expand globally. So accepting different kinds of payment methods. So like here in the US is very centric on like, hey, like we're gonna accept credit card payments, but that's not the case for like a lot of places outside of the US. Mexico, for example, has this very interesting local payment method called OXXO that you can literally go to a convenience store and pay in cash for something that you bought online. The unbanked population is quite big, so offering a solution for this population is very, very important for Mexican entrepreneurs. So as I was working, about like a year and a half later, they opened an engineering office in Dublin, and then in Singapore, and I was like, when are we opening one in LATAM? I'm like, in Latin America, I'm ready to pack my bags and head over there and start the office so that we can accelerate more quickly our business in Latin America. And a few months later, after I think I was like a year and a half into working full time at the company, we decided to open an office in Mexico City. So this was kind of like my motivation to like move from the Bay Area. It was this work opportunity to take on this like entirely new challenge to go and move to Mexico City and build an engineering office. So this meant that we needed to find local talent and help them like ramp up to what we do, what our values are, how we think about helping these online like businesses in Mexico. So I thought the opportunity was great, and it was kind of like a full circle of like, okay, I moved to the Bay Area I lived in the Bay Area for like 8 years before moving to Mexico City. So it's kind of like a nice, rewarding way to like giving back to Latin America in a way. So that was my motivation, was just like a work opportunity to move to Mexico City.
All right, excellent. So we do have a question from the audience, which I think is a very excellent question. So we're going to go ahead and address it. So the question is, can you tell us what summer jobs you did while at Cañada and during your undergrad? And then the second part to that question is, can you compare industry internships with summer research?
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for asking that. I think for me, okay, so what did I do when I was at Cañada? First, thanks to Kathy, I had a great opportunity to do research at Stanford after my first year of studying at Cañada. So this was like a great opportunity. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was like a mechanical engineering lab. I knew I wanted to do something engineering related. I just didn't know what type of engineering I wanted to do. So it was a great opportunity to just like dive into a little bit more in mechanical engineering and applying a little bit, a lot more like what I had learned at Cañada, just physics and math. And but more importantly, I think I was able to get a mentor, and he was like the PhD candidate that I was helping with and doing a bunch of experiments and a bunch of other things. But he suggested that I took a programming class, and that was probably like the biggest piece of advice that changed my life, like career-wise, is that like following up that summer, I took a programming computer science class and just fell in love with the subject. and I ended up deciding to major in it. And then after getting that experience, my second summer was working as I went to this opportunity at Brookhaven National Lab. I moved to New York and I spent there an entire summer. There's like lab in the middle of nowhere that has this like cool Hadron Collider and outside of New York City. And so that was my second opportunity, just something completely different, but like still really related to research. And right before transferring, I had an opportunity to work as a project manager at Cisco. So this was my first opportunity to tap into the tech industry, and yeah, so that's, and just get to learn a little bit more of like what the tech industry looks like. Like before this opportunity, I knew these companies existed, but I had no idea what actually were the things that they were working on. So it was like a great opportunity to just like learn a little bit more behind the scenes of like what how these companies operate. So those were like my summer, like the summer jobs I had while I was at Cañada.
I'll go next. So when I was at Cañada, so during the normal course of the semester, I mostly tutored. And I remember it was Dr. E who suggested it, that I picked up a class that I was comfortable with and tutored, because he saw me studying with a friend, and we were just writing left and right on the whiteboards, and it was fun, honestly. I got to give it to Kathy. She was a great help on helping us find resources and opportunities. I was able to get a research position at Stanford in the chemical engineering department. This program was a collaboration with the IBM Al-Nadin Research Center. So we had the opportunity to visit that research center and also several of the labs at Stanford University. So, and this program kind of brought in about 50 students from all across the US. So that was a great opportunity to kind of interact with other people coming from big universities, from other smaller campuses, and just get experience, get to know some of those folks. And from time to time, I actually run into them on social media. So it's kind of nice. And then actually my first summer, we had an opportunity to spend the summer. Curiously enough, there was also some fires happening around Chico. So we were housed by Chico State, and we were there for about 8 weeks. And this was a very basic, quote unquote, research program where we were pretty much solidifying a lot of the engineering basics. And they threw in a lot of challenges. Again, this was all community college students. So that was pretty nice. Everybody kind of felt on the same ground level. Then the Stanford opportunity came. Then after that, I transferred. And when I was in the university, I was actually able to get my company or private company internship. And that was the turning point for me, because I was pretty undecided as to whether or not I wanted to pursue a research career and go on to get a PhD versus joining industry. So at that point, I was like, I think industry is for me. I actually tried research on campus once again at the university, and I was like, yep, this is not for me. So if anything, I think trying out things is great, just to figure out what you don't want to do.
And for myself, I interned for the San Francisco International Airport. So I was working for the city of San Francisco. I had gotten that internship, I think it was the summer after the summer after I transferred, and had stayed there for the next 2 summers after that. So a total of 3. And that was like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, that was in construction management. And at the time, I didn't have any summer research experience, not until I went back to school to get my master's. But comparing the two, I mean, they are vastly different, as Jeremy was sort of explaining. But I would also like to piggyback on what he had said. Sort of the takeaway is to definitely diversify your experiences while you are still an undergrad, so that you can identify what you like, if you want to stay in industry or if you want to be in academia.
All right. Well, thank you for addressing that. So you guys mentioned that you guys had left the Bay Area. Um, uh, Lisa, you said you went to Chicago. Fidel, you said you had went to New York, at some point. Jeremy, you went to East Africa, West Africa. So, the Bay Area is really unique. The world comes to the Bay Area. They people speak more than 120 languages here. You can find various foods, various cultures here in the Bay Area. Very special place. Now, leaving the Bay Area, going to these other places, was there a culture shock? Was there some necessary adjustments? Were you taken aback by some of the things going on around you? Will our students have to prepare for that?
I'll take the first step here. So yes, definitely. I mean, just within California, right? So you have NorCal and SoCal. Those are two very different cultures. Southern California tends to be pretty laid back. Northern California is pretty active. Everybody wants to do something, always being involved in something of anything. I really enjoyed Southern California. It was different. I had my own personal struggles, like I described earlier. But then I found myself, like I said, hopping in Europe on my way down to West Africa. And so this particular country is called Equatorial Guinea, and is the only one Spanish-speaking country in the continent of Africa, officially. And I thought, they speak Spanish, I speak Spanish, we're gonna bond like brothers. If I was wrong. So I went in thinking that they were gonna embrace the Latino culture. No, they are Africans and they have their own culture, they have their own traditions. And it was shocking, but in a really good way, because I learned something, that even though this is a very small country, you have a whole ocean separating us, the Atlantic Ocean, and they have their own history, they have their own food, and not only that, but you have also a work environment that is full of expats, people from many different countries. So it was a very interesting environment to be part of. Similar to what you were describing in the Bay Area, where you have a lot of people from everywhere, but very different at the same time. Plus I had to deal with malaria, so. So if people are always kind of up for the challenge. So also the Midwest. So like I said, I worked in Nebraska and now I'm working in Kentucky. People from the Midwest are very welcoming. That's something that I definitely knew nothing about. I don't think I knew anybody from the Midwest. But if you ever dare to really leave California, to leave the Bay Area, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised. When I was in Texas for my internship, again, very warm people. Some people kind of warned me. They're like, hey, you're gonna go down to Texas. They tend to be racist down there. That was not my experience. I'm not saying that is not what happens, but that's not what I lived. So I can only speak from my perspective, right? So if anything, embrace the opportunities that come your way.
Yeah, I think I plus one that definitely like similar experience for me. I think my biggest the biggest difficulty for me was that, I mean, after living in the Bay Area for 8 years, like it had become my home, and had a girlfriend. My girlfriend lives here. She lives in San Francisco. My family moved. My mom and sister moved from El Salvador to Sacramento just to be like somewhat close to me. So it was kind of like I had my family in the Bay Area, and then suddenly I decided to like move to Mexico City, so like a new country and like decently far away. So that was the biggest difficulty of moving to the Bay Area. In terms of cultural shock and adjustment like period, I think I found my experience like be very similar to Jeremy. It's just like pleasantly surprised about Mexico City. It's just I had never visited the city before, so I was just jumped in on a plane and decided, hey, I'm gonna move. I'm moving there. The people are super friendly, very welcoming. I was fortunate enough to move with a group of people. So it was like 7 of us that moved all together to Mexico City. So I think similar to like having like an expat community, just like finding that community that you're all going through and figuring things out together was also helped a ton with the adjustment period. But yeah, I think like overall it's been a great experience. Has broadened my horizons, and just like it's giving me an opportunity to like learn a lot from essentially Mexican entrepreneurs' perspective. I think like that was my biggest takeaway. Like because my company works so closely with entrepreneurs, I had the opportunity to meet quite a few, and just brings me like it brought me a lot of joy to just learn about all the challenges that are facing, how difficult these challenges are from the US, that if I hadn't moved there and had those conversations with them, I wouldn't have had opportunity to empathize and learn from them.
So I mentioned that I had moved to Chicago, but I also had lived in New York the last 3 years. So my experience when I first moved to Chicago, it was almost like I already knew what living in a big city was like, being so close to San Francisco. Chicago was what I would call like the affordable city to live in. And for me, everyone who I met was very welcoming. So I had initially similar to Fidel, I sort of just got up and left and moved to Chicago. I had a friend living there and had already fallen in love with the city. And it was much affordable to live in than being here in the Bay Area. So I just took the leap and I moved without a job. So in the meantime, before I was working for that medical device company, I actually worked in a restaurant. And for me, that was an experience I would have probably never had staying in the Bay Area because I had my family. I could lean on them for support. But here I had to, sort of figure out how to survive on my own. And that experience I am very grateful for, because I came in as a very timid and shy person, and I was sort of like pushed into this, okay, now you have to deal with customers, you sort of have to figure out how to address conflict head on. And for me, I would avoid conflict. And I was very quiet and shy. And so actually initiating conversations with people was something I was not strong in. So this experience was, something so unlike of my engineering background and engineering, studies. And I'm absolutely grateful for it. And then I guess just mentioning, because I had lived on also the East Coast is the cold, something new to experience coming from the Bay Area. And I actually loved it. I loved having all the seasons, and a lot of people thought I was crazy for moving away from moving there from California, where we have perfect weather. But I actually ended up really enjoying having all the seasons and getting all prepared to go out in the snow.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big snow person. Let me tell you, not at all. Only on the snow cone. That's it. It's the only time I want to see snow. So we have a question from the audience. And it reads, can you tell us something you wish you would have done as an undergrad that you didn't do, and why you wish you had taken advantage of this missed opportunity? So what missed opportunity would you go back and chase if you could do it all over again? We're talking academically now. Okay, academically.
I can start. Oh, sorry, Jeremy, did you want to go?
Go ahead. Take it.
Okay. So for me, again, I was very, very shy and timid. And so I think for myself, if I was just a little bit more, I would go to office hours for the teaching with the teaching assistants for the courses I was taking. But I wish I had gone to more professors' office hours. Like, I was definitely way too afraid to approach them or to have like a conversation with them, thinking that I'll say something wrong or, but that's something that I wish I had more of an opportunity to do, is to develop that relationship with those, with professors, because I sort of later in life discovered my own sort of love for research and for academia. So like, I think I don't regret sort of the timing of my life, but I think it would have definitely been a lot easier if I sort of was already in, say, that realm.
So for me, I guess if I had to do it all over again, and again, with a lot of compromises and trade-offs, I probably would have gone for a master's degree right away. I know that a lot of colleges offer that opportunity to complete your master's while you're finishing up your undergrad. And that has a lot of benefits, right? So you end up paying a lot less, because I think a lot of times you end up paying like undergraduate fees instead of graduate fees. I ended up going for a master's that is categorized as a professional degree. So I not only had to pay tuition, but I also had to pay a professional degree fee. So, and I know that a lot of you guys that are coming from Cañada or a small community college in general have a lot of support in trying to find money, in trying to find funding. But that's not always the case. And I just wanted to address finances because it's huge. And once you're actually working, you end up figuring out that, holy crap, I need to make enough to pay my living expenses and also to pay my loans. So always keep that in mind. Be very, very aggressive when it comes to finding funding. But like I said, it comes with trade-offs. I don't know if I would have gone abroad. I don't know if I could have gone to different places where I've worked had I gone directly for my master's degree. Also, with a caveat, a lot of master's degrees require experience. So you're not guaranteed that you're going to get in just because you want it, right? So for what's worth.
For me, it's been, I think it's like very similar to Lisa's. I think I was very, very focused on just studying and trying to do well in my classes, that that I didn't take the time to, well, at least when I transferred that to like make meaningful relationships with my professors. and visit their office hours, get to know them a little bit better. I think like if I had to go back and redo it, I would probably do that. And yeah, I think like not only I did it with one like professor when I transferred, and I did it a lot during Kenyatta, and I've only gotten good things out of it. So I wish I would have been more deliberate and about how I was spending my time and build those relationships at Stanford. I think it would have helped maybe like seeing opportunities that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Like they're very like heavily like related to the tech industry. So a lot of like maybe like they're building a company or they're advising, consulting to a company, and they know you, that they can like offer you those type of opportunities that could have happened. So I think like that was the biggest, probably the biggest thing for me. It was also very difficult because like some of these classes that I was taking, it was like 600, 800 students, and the professor only has so much time. So finding time with them, it was also like it was not easy to do. So that's, I think, like one of the benefits of maybe like going to like a school with like smaller classes, that you can build those, which was the thing I one of the things that I really enjoy about Cañada, just like building those relationships with professors. It's a bit easier. So, but if I had to go back, I would have put like more effort towards building those relationships.
All right, thank you. So we have two questions from the audience. The first one is, Kenyatta alum, do you remember a specific experience of where you wish that Kenyatta had done something differently? If you were to do it, if you were to do it over, what would you change?
I'm going to share a quick one. And again, for what's worth. So like I mentioned earlier, I struggle a bit shifting from the semester system to a quarter system, just very fast paced. So I don't know, maybe they might split up a class into two quarters, two mini quarters, and just to get people a taste of how fast paced that is. Or I don't know, partnering up with another of the community colleges that offer quarter system, like I think the ANSA or Foothill, one of those two. So that might be interesting, just to get people a taste of what it is. But otherwise, the experience was great.
Yeah, this one is really tough for me because I only I only have positive experiences from Piñata in my head. I think I was just very fortunate to just have like so many opportunities in my experience at Piñata that I can't think of off the top of my head, like what I wish I could have done differently. Maybe you can go, Lisa, and then I'll think of one.
Sure. Yeah, this is a tough question because Kenyatta for me was like my safe place to explore engineering, and everyone, there's just so many resources to help sort of guide you along the way. So gosh, I also just have nothing but like very positive experiences. The one that if I were, and this is like being very nitpicky, was I was one of the recipients of the NSF scholarship, which I am indebted for. But giving $4,000 to like an 18-year-old was like you hit the lotto. It was almost like I wasn't ready. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't misuse it, Kathy and Dr. E, but I think I later on more so learned the hard way in sort of financial like intelligence, if you will. That's it.
Okay.
And along the lines of financial literacy, because you have to on your own once you start working, and it's not easy.
All right, well, thank you. And then another question from the audience, how has a pandemic changed your perspective, your respective industries?
For me, I changed quite a bit. So when I moved to Mexico City, it was part of a rotation with the option to just stay there permanently. So my plan was to stay there for 2 years and then consider staying there in a longer term. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I had to come back because back in March there was like this big announcement from the president that they were thinking about closing the borders, and my family was here, my girlfriend was here, so we just like everyone that had moved kind of like panicked a bit, and the office had closed, so we had to like essentially move back to the Bay Area because of the pandemic. So that changed quite a bit in my experience. Then in terms of the industry itself, I mean, it has gone remote completely. Like my entire company, like has gone remote. Like all of our offices all over the world are closed until the foreseeable future. A lot of tech companies are moving towards like allowing their employees to not go back to the office until like some specific times, like maybe like for example, for us, this is August of 2021, so that you can better prepare of like how you're thinking of like maybe like signing a lease somewhere else in the Bay Area, or if you're planning to stay here, know a bit of time to know like roughly when they're considering opening the offices. I mean, obviously no one knows when the offices are going to be open, but at least to give you that flexibility and to plan ahead is the one thing that a lot of tech companies have been doing. But overall, it's just, I think it's a hard test on companies of like how productive you can be when the entire company moves to being remote from one day to another. Yeah, so that's kind of like a little bit of my take on the tech industry.
So I actually recently ended my job. So I was working in New York for a hospital as a research engineer, pretty much working in research. And so when COVID hit, I was very fortunate. I can't speak to a lot of other research positions, but I wasn't laid off or given a pay cut. I think my department really tried to prevent that from happening, like advocated for us to prevent that from happening. But I know that research is definitely going to take a hit in the future with just everything. And I, was allowed to work from home. And now currently I just started a PhD program at Berkeley, and it's a sort of a similar way. I think research is really just going to slow down. It is deemed essential, and we are allowed on campus in the labs with the necessary PPE and all the social distancing precautions. But I think the productivity of actual lab bench research is definitely going to slow down.
Yeah, I mean, for my specific company, I work for Dow Chemical. I don't think I had mentioned that yet. The company as a whole really took a hit. We are diversified, so we cover plastics, we cover silicones, which is where I work for a lot of consumer products. We are into a bunch of different things within the chemical environment. And overall, it took a hit. I mean, we know that the virus started in China, so that's where the first hit came from, because we have several sites in China. Then it kind of trickled down to the US. I think it was in early March when everybody was asked to start working from home, except the essential workers, which are operators and run plant engineers. But I'm more in an analytical role. So they're like, yep, you're gonna stay home and only come to the plant if you have to. And I think between March and August, I probably went to the site 4 times, not even once a month. I was lucky, like you, Lisa. We did not get any pay cuts. Nobody ever asked us to take our vacation for working from home. I know that not everybody was as lucky. I know a lot of people that work in smaller companies here in Kentucky suffered because of that. They either had to take or use up all of their vacation or some of their sick time as well. Some either got laid off. So very lucky on my end, but I know that the industry as a whole definitely took a hit. And it's recovering. It's slow, but it is recovering.
All right, thank you. And then we have one last question from the audience. This is from a student. He says, I'm currently a math and physics major solely because I do not know what kind of engineering I want to do. Is this a bad approach for keeping doors open? And are there any of your colleagues, physical science majors, is it uncommon for physical science majors to enter the engineer industry? So essentially, they're trying to keep the doors open for engineering, but they're going physics and math or physical science. Have you heard of anyone, making that transition?
I have heard of universities, for example, that offer like general engineering degrees, not necessarily focusing on anything, or they offer a general sciences major, something like that. And yes, I think it can be in your benefit, but I will advise that you kind of pick a niche and try to be well-rounded about it. You need to be good at something, right? And you're gonna have the basics down, which is great. And a lot of times when you start in a job, they treat you like you know nothing. So, which is good. I mean, you're gonna learn from the ground up. But if you have a particular interest, I will say, try to at least take some classes so that you can speak the same language.
Okay, thank you. So, boy, these questions, they just keep coming, which is good. So we have another question. What advice or recommendations do you have for someone wanting to do research with a lab but don't know where to start?
I can speak to this. As daunting as it may be, I would suggest reaching out straight to the PI, the principal investigator, or the professor, or if you know any of the graduate students in their lab, those are also good pathways to inquire about the research and of seeing if there is any opportunity. So I would suggest directly just going to the source, either being the professor or one of the graduate students. And that can be, a current PhD student. I know there's some master's students, or even postdocs are also comprised of a lab.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And then we have a question. Oh man, okay. What advice would you give students who are in their early stages of their college careers? And then there's a B part to that. How about those in the later stages of their careers?
I can answer that. So, like, for me, at the beginning of your career, I think it's at least for me, what worked really well is just doing like a breadth type of search, especially if you're not sure exactly what you want to dive into, if you're interested in STEM as a whole. So I took a wide variety of engineering classes while I was at Cañada. And this was just like a great opportunity to just explore your curiosities, like all these different type of classes that touch a little bit in each one of these majors. To I think what Jeremy was saying at the beginning, to just figure out like what you don't want to do, but also maybe finding like what you like really want to do. So for me, it was just finding that computer science class in Cañada, and also like liking the physics and math and engineering courses that I found like, hey, a computer science class, kind of like a computer science major, combines the two things that I've enjoyed the most while I was at Cañada. So narrowing it down. Then later at my later in your college career, like I think before graduating undergrad, I think the biggest piece of advice is just um, have like a bit of a plan of like when you join a job and kick off your career. I think it's very important for your development to have concrete goals, like when you join the like maybe like whatever job you join, like maybe talking to your manager of like what could be like good concrete goals that you plan to do in the next 6 to 8 months. That would have benefited me a lot just to grow more quickly in my respective jobs. So I think like that would be the piece of advice I would give. And also like I think it's also like getting that industry experience and that research experience to like understand like which path you want to take. I think it's also like very important as you move along in your college career.
Okay, thank you. So Fidel, looks like you have a question. You want to go ahead and answer that one?
Yeah, so I actually haven't finished my master's degree. So to answer the question, I haven't gotten one. I'm kind of like in a pause where I wanted to take a break from school and get some industry experience before finishing up my master's degree. My master's degree would be in computer science as well. I think the challenge to get in at least and have the opportunity to complete the master's was making sure that in your undergrad, like your GPA is it's good. Like when you're going to the academic side of things, I think having like a good GPA is very valuable. In my experience, it's been like a lot more valuable than if you're going to the industry. Like if in the industry, they care a lot more about how well you work with other people and you get things done. The other thing was just like building those relationships and getting to know those professors allow you to build strong letter of recommendations that are important to get into the master's degree. And the last thing is the GRE, which is just a standardized test that you unfortunately need to take and prepare for to get into the master's. So those three things were the ones that I had to do in order to get into the master's. So each one had like their respective challenge.
All right, excellent. And so we got just two more questions. So one is from the audience, and the question is, how much of what you learned in college do you actually use in your jobs?
I can answer that. It's probably more than you wish and less than you have in your toolbox. The tricky part is that you don't really know exactly where you're going to be using and at what points. So again, going back to the basics, really have your basics down, because you never know when you're going to be required to step up and solve problems, attack issues. And really, I mean, you have so many different things under your belt that you understand, that you're good at. And that's why people are willing to give you so much responsibility. So just be ready to use it whenever.
All right, excellent. And so the last final question. So if there's any advice that you'd like to share with the audience during your academic journey, making a transition to living outside of an area unknown, or getting into your career, what would that be?
My piece of advice would be to learn to accept failure, and that I did not learn until later in my life. I think I always sort of spoke in these absolutes as well, that, you know, I was just going to get my bachelor's and I was going to get a job and that was it. But, you know, life is more complex than that. Your interests and your values and everything is all tied in to sort of where you see yourself in your career. So I would say, don't be afraid that you're going to fail at something. I know I sort of had put emphasis like, oh man, I wasn't good in my biomechanics class. I got a C, and here I am getting my PhD studying biomechanics. So that would be my piece of advice.
For me, I would say be bold and dare to dream big. For example, my current job, I was reading the job description. I was like, I don't think I'm qualified, but I probably meet like 50% of the criteria. And here I am doing it. So the biggest limitation you're going to find in life is actually the reflection of the mirror. So sometimes close your eyes and dream big and just go for it. You'll be surprised as to how many rewarding opportunities and experiences you're going to get coming out of college and from there on. So there's a lot for you to get up there. So dare to grab it.
I think my biggest piece of advice is just it's mainly to seek out those opportunities that are like outside of the core classes that you take in Kenyatta. I think like taking the classes and learning as much as possible is very, very important. But I think finding those internships, those research experiences like outside of classes, like it's just as important. I think like it allows you to learn about yourself a lot more, like what are your interests, what you don't like, and becoming more confident and building that resume and experience that will help you throughout your career. So seek out those opportunities, make sure that you're ready for them and taking them. As Jeremy said, like don't shy away from them. Like even if you don't think you're qualified, make sure to jump in and do your best. I think like finding those opportunities at Kenyatta would be my biggest piece of advice.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here this evening. I know for you, Jeremy, it's 8:10 there in Kentucky. Oh, is it 9? Oh, wow. Okay. So, okay. Well, it's 9 o'clock in Kentucky. So we do appreciate you being here, and Fidel and Lisa. And so what I'm going to do is, I guess you guys have a few fans in the audience who want to speak or say hello. So I'm going to unmute their microphones. But prior to doing that, I'm going to stop the recording. And again, we do thank you and appreciate you being here. So I'm stopping the recording and I'm going to open up the mics.